morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, evening, wherever you are joining us online. We appreciate y'all being here today. We'd like to take you on a little journey with us that we've experienced at PayPal and see if it can resonate with y'all. And hopefully you can pick up maybe some breadcrumbs and take it back to your company, even if it's just one or two things. We're Agile Coaches at PayPal. I'm Brian Tweedt.
Hi, I'm Niranjan Mamillapalli.
We are supporting over 90 development teams as Agile Coaches and about 400 developers. So it's a pretty big ask to cover so many teams. And one thing that we've learned in this process, to roll out a process to be successful, is to keep it simple, right? The more complex you make something, it's going to be harder to replicate. It's going to be harder to get it through people to adopt. So hopefully what you see today is going to be a very simple process that we've come up with for our team. Our mission statement is to helping delivery teams deliver customer value more efficiently with predictable results.
Thanks, Brian. So some of the key pain points that define the problem statement are the stakeholders did not have a view of what the development teams were working on or not meeting the delivery timelines. The development teams did not know what to maintain their focus on due to constant priority shifts. The requirements, the planned work, and the progress were all documented in and tracked in separate tools and applications.
Does your first bullet mean you can't see the stakeholders or they can't see you?
They can't see what the development teams are working on. And the development teams themselves were not able to predict by when they would be able to complete the delivery.
So a show of hands, how many people actually can identify with some of these problem statements? Okay, that's obviously a big problem. So hopefully some of this that we're going to go over, you can say, I can take that back to my organization.
So our solution to this problem is a 3-step repeatable quarterly epic commitment process where first the product and the development teams agree upon the planned work. The development teams work primarily on the focused and the prioritized work, and they continue to deliver on them.
And as you can see, very simple, and you probably all say, duh, that why wouldn't we be doing this? But as you can see, the problem statement, these 3 things are a challenge with teams to stay committed, focused, and to be able to deliver on time.
And as mentioned, this quarterly epic commitment process is a repeatable process quarter over quarter.
All right, so one of the things for the commitment stage is that we need from product a clearly defined roadmap where they'll lay out what the development team is expected to work on in the next quarter or the next big project.
So we have taken a very simple example here. So let's say for 2023, we have one of the roadmap items to have a feature to translate documents into Southeast Asian languages like Vietnamese, Thai, Malay, Indonesian, etc.
And then with those roadmap items, like a one-pager, the development team will take those and provide a high-level estimate, what you'd probably call a T-shirt size in your organization, how long they think it would take, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Then from the T-shirt, the sizes, the estimates, product will go and say, or they'll break them down and say from a quarterly perspective, and create the well-defined and prioritized epics back to the development team.
So on the same example of the translate documents feature, this is how the roadmap item is broken down into epics that are assigned to multiple quarters based on the high-level estimates from the development team and their priorities.
And this is where all the magic happens. The development team will then take those epics, and they're actually going to set a target start and end date on that epic. So we have a custom field in the epic that says, okay, we development team, we identify the priority, we understand the priority, and we're going to start it on this date, and based off of our estimate T-shirt size, this is when we think we're going to be able to deliver it. The beauty of this, we have everybody aligned. stakeholders have visibility into what development's working on. They understand the ask, development understands the ask, and let's start the quarter. Let's go.
Yeah. So once the planned work is agreed upon, so how do you bring this work into focus? So as Agile practitioners, most of us are aware of what backlog refinement is, right? But we also introduced an epic refinement ceremony, wherein we break down the epics into stories, and then we assure that they are being assigned to the upcoming and future sprints.
And before the epic, the quarter starts, the epic should already have been broken down into stories, right? But why would we do this every sprint to go and review it? The objective of the epic refinement is to say, okay, this is the epic we've committed to this quarter. And in our backlog refinement ceremonies, we're going to spend about 2 to 5 minutes per epic to make sure that we still have all of the stories that are aligned for what the ask is. We're going to make sure that they are in the appropriate sprints to meet that target date, that we don't have one way in the backlog that got forgot about, that we would not deliver. And then if, by any chance, we're going to start to miss that date, we can call it out during this meeting. Hey, this date is no longer achievable. We're communicating back to product, back to the stakeholders in this bi-weekly meeting, rather than getting to the end of the quarter and say, why did you miss your target?
And to ensure that this discipline is maintained, typically the Scrum Masters protect the development teams from the so-called scope creep or unplanned or unprioritized work that gets introduced during the sprints.
And we all know that priorities change. We all know that, hey, we now have a new shift of work that we've got to work on. So how do you address that? Well, you would do it the same as if you were at a sprint. You say, okay, we need to stop what we're working on. We're going to now reevaluate this new level of epic that we've got to commit to, and we need to reprioritize everything and recommit all over again and set new dates, new expectations based off of that new priority, because maybe your lowest priority epic that you were going to get to is no longer going to be able to be delivered, and then you're going to have to push that date out, communicate back to the stakeholders. Again, keeping that visibility into the stakeholders know what we're working on.
So is this a very high-level ceremony, or this is you just refining epics during backlog refinement?
It's the epic refinement ceremony in the backlog refinement is literally just to make sure you're still on track, make sure there's no stories that got missed, make sure that they didn't get lost into the backlog, someone forgot about it. That's the epic refinement in that backlog. When you're actually breaking that epic down would be pre-quarter, before you start the quarter, and that's a different, or your quarterly planning ceremony would be. Oh, yeah, thank you. The purpose of the epic refinement ceremony is what's the objective of that one? Yes.
Before we go further, excellent that comment. So we talked about the high-level estimates, right? So what sort of complexities or questions we generally hear from our teams as to what level of planning do we need to do to even get to that estimates? Do you come across such sort of questions anytime?
Yeah, so let's pick up these questions at the end. We're almost done. We got one more slide to go through, a couple more slides to go through, and then we'll get to your questions. But it's a good question, so keep that in mind.
And with this established focus, our friend John here is not bored, but he knows exactly what to work on because the priorities have already been set.
Then for our delivery, we have created a epic Kanban board to track the progress. So this is our one source of truth. That's what we mentioned earlier. One of our problem statement is we didn't have one place that any stakeholder could know what the development teams are working on. Someone had a spreadsheet, someone had a PowerPoint, someone sent an email. And then once you send those spreadsheets, they're stale, right? Because things have changed, and if that communication doesn't keep going on, people don't understand why we're missing dates. So based off of this, where each team would have their own Kanban board that provides a visibility into the status of each of our epics. And we're using Jira at PayPal, so we're using the Jira to its capabilities of creating quick filters. We can identify what's new feature work, what's text sustaining work, what's epics that don't meet the definition of ready. And so make sure that we continually revamp these epics to make sure they're aligned with our goals.
Yeah, and as Brian mentioned, we have Jira as the system of record in PayPal, which helps us to trace our requirements right from initiatives, programs to epics and user stories, and then their progress throughout.
Then once the work is completed, development team will move that epic into completed state, notify product, say this work is done, product will review it, accept the epic, and close it. And at the end of the quarter, each team will hold a quarterly epic commitment retrospective to identify what's working well, how can we improve, and what can be repeatable on other teams. If some teams really shining and other teams struggling, how can we take that information? Because we as Agile coaches will be engaged with each of these teams to say, here's what another team's doing, and here's how it's working, so we can replicate that. And as you can see, our delivery is sprint over sprint, quarter over quarter, and year over year. Hopefully get to be more refined.
Yeah, and this delivery process is repeatable and it gets better and better over time.
As I said, quick, easy, and simple.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So you had a question?
Yeah, this is regarding the first one with the comment. When we are trying to clearly define our roadmap and trying to come up with the high-level estimates that we require, that's more like the plan phase sort of a thing from our the old waterfall, right? So what I wanted to know is what sort of questions and complexities you have seen while working, where dev usually comes and says that, hey, we don't have enough detail here to provide you that sort of high-level estimate. Just wanted to hear your perspective.
Correct. So the question is in regards to the high-level estimate, what do you need in order to give that estimate? That's a great question. Essentially, it's the development team, that communication back and forth with the product. You take those questions, you'll take the high-level estimate and have that open conversation between the dev leads or the dev engineers to understand what the ask is, and to know, it's okay, if we understand the ask as it's written here, here's how long we think it's going to take. And again, an estimate is an estimate, period. It's not a commitment. It's not, you could say something is a month worth of work, but as you start to get more details, start to dig into it better, or when you get the epic broken down, you might say, hey, this is going to be more like 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And that's where you have that communication. Before we can commit to it, we gave you a high level, yeah, but it's a little bit longer than we thought because there was more details. The other thing also is important, and during that high level, is to identify dependencies before you pull in that committed work. So that way, if there's a dependency, we can't complete it. We want to make sure we are going to address that dependency. If another team needs to do something, they need to commit to their work before we can commit to ours. Niranjan, anything to add?
Yeah, one of the key things that has helped us really, and which you have seen working, is having discovery sessions on requirements, right? Are these requirements standalone features? Are they part of a larger project or a program? And what are the dependencies and interdependencies? So that really helps us in bringing up the complexity of these requirements.
Where do you draw the line of how much information is needed in a feature or a user story at this point in time? It's only when you actually get into a sprint, that's when we truly know what's happening, right? But this is all at the time of plan phase, right? So at this time, we generally get these sort of questions. So this is all an art, not a science, right? From your perspective, where do you draw the line, to say that how much information is needed at this point?
Yeah, so it's actually a continuous process. We cannot just draw a line and say, okay, we have everything that we need to deliver that particular feature, for example. Right? So we start from the roadmap planning. We discuss a roadmap item, And then when we do the epic refinement, we break the roadmap item down into the epics and identify what are the user stories that need to be delivered as part of that epic, right? And that level, again, we do some discovery. And do we have any dependencies of that epic on other teams or other applications or products and so on. So at every level, the roadmap level, epic level, and user story level, we keep trying to identify the dependencies, and then we come up with the estimates down to the user story level during sprints.
And before you can commit to that epic, if you don't fully understand it, we would have a spike story under that epic that will say, we're going to do some investigation in this sprint and get a better understanding before we can commit to it. So it's okay to work on that from a spike perspective before we commit to it. So just to have that capacity pulled into a sprint. Chris?
Team, I have one last question from Zoom, and then we're out of time on this session. The question is, will this approach work in case development teams are located in different geographies and work on Epic together? Make sure you say that you can
So will the solution work if the teams are geographically separated or located? Okay. Yeah, we have actually, we ourselves have teams that are spread across geographically. So we do try to find the best suitable time for the team to come together for the refinement sessions and the planning sessions. At the same time, we also encourage to have some focused discussions during their convenient times to come up with their findings and their questions as well. So we have seen this solution really working for geographically distributed teams as well.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be at the PayPal booth if you want to ask any additional questions. I saw a couple of other hands, so we'll be happy to help answer any other questions. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.